Am I wrong, or did Star Trek just introduce its own version of the Infinity Stones? Am I wrong, or did Star Trek finally get its own version of the Infinity Stones? The Bajoran orbs, central to Deep Space Nine, are mysterious objects of unbelievable power. There are many orbs, but they have either been stolen or vanished, and are viewed by some as a myth. In Star Trek #29, however, all the orbs stand revealed, with power on the scale of the Infinity Stones. Star Trek #29 was written by Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly and drawn by Tess Fowler. In the middle of the issue, a text piece, made to resemble an ancient Bajoran scroll, lists 10 orbs. The scroll also denotes their purpose. Most curious is the 10th orb, positioned in the center of the others. It is called the Orb of Emissary, whose power is to open the gate. Sisko, trapped in a pocket universe created by the Prophets, uses these orbs to finally communicate with them, as well as travel to the Celestial Temple where they reside. The Bajoran orbs are some of the most powerful objects in the Star Trek universe, and only a handful were seen on screen. The Bajorans are a deeply spiritual race, venerating the Prophets in their celestial temple. The Prophets, a non-corporeal, non-linear species, created the orbs as a way of communicating with the Bajorans. One orb was seen in Deep Space Nine's pilot episode. Both Sisko and Yajia Dax experienced the orb's power as it seemingly transported them through time. The episode also stated there were other orbs, but most of them were missing. The Bajoran orbs went on to play a huge role in Star Trek Day of Blood, a crossover event running through IDW's Trek titles. Kallus too obtained the Orb of Destruction, intending to use it to kill the universe's gods. This orb, which had never been on screen before, nearly destroyed the Klingon homeworld, but it also revived Worf's son Alexander after Kallus killed him. The fate of the Orb of Destruction remains unknown, but now the others have all finally been revealed. Each one has its own power and attributes, as detailed in the chart below. The Bajoran orbs are the Star Trek equivalent of Marvel's Infinity Stones. The Bajoran orbs, with their power to alter space and time, can be compared to Marvel's Infinity Stones. These stones, created in the wake of the Big Bang, command the fundamental forces of the universe. Thanos, among others, has sought the stones for their power, and the Mad Titan's quest to obtain them all was documented in the miniseries Thanos Quest. Once Thanos collected the stones, he used them to kill half of all life in the universe, as seen in 1991's The Infinity Gauntlet, which in turn inspired the first 3 phases of the MCU. Unlike Thanos and the Infinity Stones, Sisko used the Bajoran orbs for a more constructive purpose, to travel through space and enter the Celestial Temple so that he may commune with the Prophets. Unlike Thanos and the Infinity Stones, Sisko used the Bajoran orbs for a more constructive purpose, to travel through space and enter the Celestial Temple so that he may commune with the Prophets. The orbs can be used for evil ends, however, and Kallus' reign of terror proved this true. With the Orb of Destruction, Kallus slaughtered gods and nearly upended the natural order of the universe. Since Kallus' defeat, Lore has taken the orb, finishing what the Klingon Emperor started. Lore then rewrote reality in his image, and Sisko's fight against him will be chronicled in Lore War. Let me preface this with a disclaimer. I'm not saying Star Trek has gone full Marvel. But after watching the latest season of Star Trek, Discovery, or insert latest series here depending on what you're watching, I couldn't help but feel that we may have just witnessed the franchise's closest thing yet to the Infinity Stones. You know, the glowing artifacts of power that, when brought together, can reshape reality and give their wielder godlike abilities? Yeah, that concept seems to have boldly gone where no Trek has gone before. Before you shout blasphemy and vaporize me with a phaser set to overreact, hear me out. The MacGuffins of power. Star Trek has always featured ancient alien artifacts and mysterious technologies. From the Guardian of Forever to the Preserver's obelisks, the franchise doesn't shy away from the idea of long-lost civilizations leaving behind dangerous toys. But what's happening now feels different. With this latest storyline involving a set of scattered, enigmatic relics, each with unique properties tied to fundamental forces of the universe, it's hard not to draw a line straight to Marvel's Infinity Stones. These new artifacts, call them what you want, progenitor tech, temporal anchors, quantum crystals, etc., are each imbued with extreme capabilities, One manipulates time, another seems to interface directly with consciousness, another influences matter and energy on a cosmic scale. Individually, they're powerful. Together, they unlock something much bigger, something potentially universe-defining. Sound familiar? The Ancient Ones left us a puzzle. What really seals the deal is how the characters are reacting. Instead of the usual Trek technobabble of fixing warp cores and negotiating peace treaties, this season is leaning into the epic quest vibe. The crew is on a multi-episode scavenger hunt, traversing galaxies and solving ancient riddles. These aren't just artifacts, they're pieces of a larger, ancient design. Something meant to be assembled. Now that's very un-Star Trek and yet incredibly compelling. In Marvel's Infinity Saga, each stone represented a fundamental aspect of existence: space, time, mind, reality, power, and soul. They were scattered, protected, and hunted until Thanos gathered them into a gauntlet and snapped his way into pop culture legend. In Star Trek's case, it's less about domination and more about discovery. But the parallel structure, powerful fragments spread across the stars, needing to be united to activate a cosmic purpose, is impossible to ignore. Trek's version of a gauntlet. To its credit, Star Trek doesn't just copy and paste. The series reinterprets the collect them all trope through its own lens. Instead of a gauntlet-wielding villain, we get a crew of explorers wrestling with moral consequences, prime directive dilemmas, and philosophical debates about power and responsibility. The real gauntlet is ethical. Should such power ever be used, even for good? That's classic Trek. It's not about whether you can reshape the galaxy, it's about whether you should. The artifacts may resemble Infinity Stones in structure, but the way Trek treats them, thoughtfully, cautiously, even fearfully, feels truer to Roddenberry's vision. Still, the narrative beats are undeniably Marvel-esque. Mysterious origin, escalating stakes, interstellar chases, even hints of a final showdown with a being or force who wants the full set for less noble purposes. A new kind of stakes for Starfleet. This raises a question: is Star Trek evolving into something bigger and more mythic? In a post-Marvel world, sci-fi and fantasy storytelling has shifted. Audiences now expect long-form arcs, serialized mysteries, and cosmic stakes. Star Trek, once the episodic gold standard, has gradually adapted. But now it seems the franchise is embracing a more serialized, artifact-driven mythology, possibly in response to this broader shift in how fans consume genre storytelling. Some purists might call it Star Trek trying to be Marvel. But maybe it's more accurate to say that Star Trek is learning how to play with the toys that modern audiences love, without losing its soul. It's not chasing capes and infinity gauntlets. It's exploring similar concepts with its own brand of intelligence and moral inquiry. So, am I wrong? Probably not. The signs are there. Multiple ancient objects of immense power? Check. Each one associated with a different universal force or concept? Check. A scavenger hunt across space to find and protect them? Check. A larger purpose unlocked when they're united? Big check. And yet, Star Trek still manages to make it feel fresh, thoughtful, even hopeful. If Marvel's Infinity Stones were about what happens when power is abused, Trek's version seems to be about what happens when knowledge is earned. The difference is key.